Check and see if you're awake.
I am. Good to see you. Well, good afternoon. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and get to meet with so many of you. A lot of you are old friends. Well, you're friends. You're not necessarily old. How about that? But I just wanted to say thank you so much. We've been trying to make sure that we get out and offer an opportunity for people to not only express their opinion, to ask questions, to express their concerns. And I'm here to tell you that it is a great privilege, one, to serve you. The other part of that is it's an even greater privilege to be called your friend and neighbor. As we come in, we've had so many stories that have been shared about how we've been able to work with some of you on some of the issues. And I can assure you this, that for us, when we were running for office, I told you that we would do our very best to not only show back up, but to make sure that we were available and having these meet and greets and town halls. And honestly, taking your phone calls and your emails is what it's all about. I hope that you understand that we really want to be here to serve you. We were not born Democrat or Republican or unaffiliated. We were born Americans. And what it is all about for me is making sure that as Americans that we have job opportunities, we have a country that we're not ashamed of and that we don't need to be apologizing for. And because America's greatness is truly that, it's America's greatness. Many of you, when I looked at the population originally of Graham County, it hasn't grown a whole lot, but it hasn't decreased a whole lot. But the real key with that is we've got to continue to create job opportunities in Graham County, because when you don't do that, not only do you get the double-digit unemployment that is one of the worst in the country, that you've experienced for a lifetime, truly. I mean, this is not new. Unemployment in Graham County has been here a long time. But you also know the other part of it, and that is that when we don't have jobs, the kids and grandkids leave Graham County to go other places, to work and provide for them, and it separates families. And that's the consequence of not being able to provide jobs. And so for us, we want to make sure that we create an environment. Talking to some of the gentlemen here that employ people, they're at a dilemma. Do we hire additional people? Do we go above 50 employees? What is that going to mean if we've got Obamacare? What are we going to have to do? Those are all things that honestly shouldn't be decisions on what we need to do, because that is stopping job growth. And what we're seeing over and over again is just a country that has gotten too much red tape, too much taxes, too much interference into our daily lives, and it's time that we take it back. And I'm proud to be able to stand with you in that effort to take back our country. And I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity. You actually have the governor coming in to Graham County here in just a very few minutes. That's going to be here. Some of the Appalachian Regional Commission dollars will actually be working to provide some computers for schools and for here in the local community. And so when we start to see how we can be neighbors helping neighbors, it's what it's all about. But that's not new to you. When I tell people up in Washington, D.C. about the district I represent, I can tell them about the character and truly the wonderful hearts that so many of the people in Western Carolina represent. Because you know what? When somebody has a need, we're the first ones to be there. If there's a death or a sickness or an illness, you're there. And we need to do that across our country, because quite frankly, when we allow that servant's heart, that Christ-like heart, to serve other people, it makes a difference. And when you share that, it's foreign. I mean, when I can tell you, I'm up in Washington, D.C., and my staff will tell you is when I'm walking the halls, I'm saying hello to people and how are you doing? It doesn't matter what their job is, and a lot of people, they just kind of go the other way. They're looking, it's like they don't see it. So I'll stop them You know, it could be a guy, you know, mopping the floors and asking, you know, what his name is, what he's doing. Well, they're not used to that in Washington, D.C. You know, we wave going down the road, don't we? You know, when you're going, you know, you got the one hand, you know, and if you see a dog on the side of the road, you wave just in case the owner might be close, right? But that's what we do, and that's what, you know, that's what the mountain culture and heritage and character is all about. And so what I want to make sure of is that we change Washington, D.C. We don't allow Washington, D.C. to change us. And I just want to say thank you all for being so supportive. Thank you for allowing me to be here. We've got a lot of challenges, but I wanted to go ahead and hear from you. And if you've got questions or comments or things that you want to share, I want to hear from you today. And if there's not enough questions, then I'll go ahead and get back on and tell you a few other things. But I want to go ahead and open the floor to any questions that you might have at this point. Yes, sir.
What about gas prices?
About gas prices?
Yeah, and all that. Anything going on the pipeline and all that?
You know, we have passed legislation for the Keystone Pipeline, which ultimately would really decrease our dependency on foreign oil. Nothing hurts a fixed income like gas prices. Because when we go, those that are on fixed incomes, you know, we talk about how the economy's doing. Well, when you're spending $75 or $100 to fill up a tank, you know, that's food that doesn't get put on the table. That's just other decisions that don't. So we can bring prices down on gas very quickly. If the president goes ahead and says with the Keystone Pipeline, which we're hopeful that he will, it'll be one of those things that he has to be forced in to do, just to be honest. But we've passed enough. We've had enough studies. We've been studying that since 2008. The only thing that's been studied longer than that is Corridor K. And so, you know, when you look at that, we really need to work on that. But if we do that, we start to allow some drilling of oil and natural gas. We know history tells us in 2008, when we just announced that we were doing that, the gas prices went from about $4 a gallon to $1.61 a gallon within 6 months. And you talk about making a real difference. We need to do that again. And I'm putting the pressure on, even though sometimes that's not the popular thing to do. We're hopeful that we'll start to see that. But you need to keep calling those senators and congressmen all over. You don't have to call me. I'm on that one. But you need to call everybody else, and hopefully we'll see a difference there. If not, it's going to go the other way, where we will see $5 and $6 a gallon oil. You know, you got the trouble in the Middle East right now with Egypt. And the Suez Canal, they're in that control. We're going to see a spike in oil prices right away.
Don't support the radical man.
I beg your pardon?
Don't support the radical man.
Don't support the radical man. And you're right. Is that radical nature we need to make sure of. But a great question. I saw a hand over here. Another hand. Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming, Congressman. We appreciate you coming to Grant County. You alluded to one thing there with the laptop program through the ARC. The organization that I work for, great. We've talked about it a little bit. We've been working on increasing internet access for Grant County citizens. And our most recent data shows that there's less than 60% of residents that have access to high-speed internet access.
Right.
So I guess my question is, what can you do and how can you promote that increased access, not only for residents and children, but also for entrepreneurs in our county?
Well, three things. One is when we talk about infrastructure, one of those infrastructures that we were talking about really has to be the broadband infrastructure. You know it from a standpoint of roads. We were just talking about roads. You understand the infrastructure part. But broadband being in particular, one of the things that we don't have, not just here in Graham County, Graham, Swain, to a lesser degree as you move the other way, Avery and Mitchell face the same thing. These mountain counties really have very limited broadband, and what it does is that once you get that in place, you see all kinds of businesses that need the high-speed internet that can do that. As you're aware, there's been a couple of private groups trying to make sure that we connect not only from here to Atlanta, but also up to Oak Ridge. And so and I've talked to not only AT&T, but a number of broadband carriers, encouraging them. It is not fair for companies to be able to provide just broadband for those high populous areas and leave the rest of us. You know, I represent 17 counties. Most of those are very rural in nature. And if you only serve those high population areas, it's like eating a filet every day. You know, it may be great, but eventually you run out of filet and you have to eat, you know, well, I won't name other parts of the beef, but but eventually, I was going to say rump roast, but eventually you have to eat other parts of that. And so with that, we're committed to trying to get broadband. We've been working actively in the first few months because it'll help our schools, our businesses all the way around. I've met with some of the folks here in schools to talk about some of those issues. So hopefully today is just part of an initiative that continues to grow and allows children and grandchildren to stay here and create jobs. But thank you for your work. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how do you see the debt ceiling showdown playing out?
The question is, how do I see the debt ceiling playing out? Actually, there's two different things I think will play out. One will be the continuing resolution or the budget at the end of September, of which, as many of you know, I've been encouraging a defunding of Obamacare through that particular thing. I think that Obamacare hurts families and hurts jobs. It's not ready and it's not fair. Those four things, we've got to do all that we can. But beyond that, in October, or perhaps the first part of November, we will see us bump up against the debt ceiling again. And as long as we have a plan to balance over a period of time, and right now that period is 10 years, but as long as we have a real plan to get out of debt eventually, you know, we will raise the debt ceiling in order to do that. It's kind of like having a mortgage on your house. Many of you have a mortgage on your house. It's not reasonable if you have a mortgage to say you're going to pay it all off tomorrow. But you got to have a plan, and you can't keep adding to the mortgage over and over and over again without any plan to repay it. And that's what a lot of times we've done, is we've gone in and we've said we're just going to continue to add without really a real plan to repay it. So if we have a plan to do that, I don't see us defaulting on our debt, only because we're a country that pays its bills. We always have. We're a people that pays its bills. But we need to control the spending part of it so that we're not continuing to add to that, where it becomes impossible for our kids or grandkids to pay it back. And we're very close to that point. We're very close to that. Yeah, but you want to follow up on that? I figured you might.
Do you think Speaker Baker will continue with the majority of the majority policy, or will it have to be similar to what happened last?
The Speaker has said that he wants to continue with the majority of the majority policy, and I believe that he's committed to doing that, mainly because when you go back home, if I can go to him and say, I've held 10 town hall meetings, which we will be doing over the next, starting Friday, last Friday till 10 days from now, we'll have had 10 town hall meetings, which will represent, really, by the time we're finished, we will have had a town hall meeting or a meet and greet in every single county I represent. When I can go back to him and say, listen, the people want this, it makes a big difference. Grassroots, you know, you want to think that you just read the headlines and all that, but it's really about the grassroots. And if I can say that I had a group of people in Graham County that came out in the mid-afternoon on a Monday afternoon and they expressed their concern, it makes a difference for the Speaker, but I think that he wants to really make sure that the people are represented and that we vote that way. Okay? Yeah, let me come here and I'll come to you then, Steve. Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's good to see you. It's been a long time.
Good to see you again.
My question has to do with creating jobs. As we all know, creating jobs means education. And as you're experiencing, as well as all of us are, going to college is becoming more and more expensive.
Right.
Students are taking out larger and larger loans.
Right.
And the Congress passed a bill to keep the cap on the interest rate on loans to 3% this year, and then they're allowing it to go up next year.
Right. Right.
So here's my question to you. It's just been revealed that in Congress, legislators, children who take out loans can have those loans reimbursed.
That's not accurate, but go ahead. I've read the same thing, but go ahead.
So my question is, if we do that for congressmen and senators, why is it we can't just go ahead and roll that out to all the people in Western North Carolina who have kids in college needing help with tuition and reimburse their loans as well?
Well, one, it's not happening for congressmen and senators, so, but let me tell you the issue with that. And here's a guy that grew up very poor and paid his way through college. When we make things too easy, two things happen. One is they quit having value, and the other part of that is that when they quit having value, that they become meaningless. And what we've done is we've created an environment that's almost too easy at times. Now, and you're right, we're taking out more and more loans that we do that. And what happens is I'm finding people that are living on school loans, and because it is more affordable for them to go out and take a school loan and go to school and live on a school loan and say, well, one day I'll pay it back. So they amass this unbelievable amount of debt. A portion of it they're living on, a portion of it's going to the schools. I've talked to a number of community colleges, and that I'm very concerned because they're sitting there saying, well, if this comes back on us, this got this huge fiasco. But hear me out. The other thing is when you make it available. What did we just go through? A housing bill. You know, and we had a housing bust, did we not? Why did we have the housing bust? Because what we had is too available of credit. Now, I'm all for making sure that everybody who wants to go to college has the opportunity to do that. But the other part of that is that there has to be some accountability. The law that we just passed capped it right now, but allows it to have a market rate in terms of a fluctuating market rate, in terms of real cost. The question becomes, we're at $1 trillion in school debt right now, $1 trillion. And so with that $1 trillion, who should be paying it back? Well, what you're saying is we ought to pass something to forgive that all to the students, and that we ought to pay them. I don't agree with that. I think that's, I'll let you do a follow-up. I don't agree with that because when you ultimately do that, I made my son go work cutting trails one summer for me, and I paid him. But the reason he did that was because he knew 2.5 blisters represented a paycheck. And what we have to do is show the value of work, the value of actually investing. And so in doing that, we can't make it too easy. There's pride in work. Okay?
Well, all I would offer as a rebuttal, if I may, is the GI Bill disproves everything you just said. When we had the GI Bill, we paid people full for everything that they needed for college. We built our country and we built
We did, but let's take the GI Bill. That was not free. Let me just tell you, the GI Bill was an investment, it was sacrifice of people. It's very different when you go and you work. Am I for training and education? Without a doubt. But it is very different when you ask a veteran to go and serve his country, and that becomes part of a benefit, versus just saying, well, just because you happen to be a child, and so we'll agree to disagree. I can tell by your smile there, but I take what you're saying. I think we make things at times too easy, and that's my concern. Steve.
I've been listening to the debate on the Senate immigration bill.
Right.
I understand that most of the House members don't agree with it. They're going to introduce their own bill.
Right.
Where do you stand on the immigration? What can we do different from what the Senate has proposed?
You know, the Senate bill, I'm not for the Senate bill. It's gotten really too big, too many things. Whenever you get everybody to compromise and agree on things, you start throwing all kinds of things in there because what you want, well, here, I'll give you this, and what you want, I'll give you this, and eventually you get everybody to agree on it. I think we need to take a step-by-step approach when it comes to that. We need to make sure our borders are secure. If they're not secure, we will have the same problem in 15 years. And somebody says, well, quit being a magnet for jobs. Let me just tell you, the worst job here in America is a magnet for many people that don't live in this country, because we have a standard of living that is so much better than most of the other places in the world that they will continue to come unless our economy is so bad that they don't want to do it. And so we got to secure our border. I think we need to work a guest worker program that doesn't take America's jobs and doesn't have a path to amnesty. You know, a lot of the workers that I talk to, they don't necessarily want to become U.S. citizens. Some do, but many of them don't. And so when you look at that, if we've got a guest worker program that doesn't take America's jobs, the Farm Bureau came out with a 7-point plan that was a very good plan that used E-Verify a number of areas. I embraced that many months ago, that I felt like it was a step-by-step approach to make sure that we do that, but first with securing our borders. Okay? Yes?
I just kind of like to bring that to a personal level. I happen to be have been teaching English as a second language for Southwestern Community College. I'm not teaching currently. I have known a lot of people in your district who are undocumented.
Right.
I have known a child who came over here when he was 2 years old between his mother's legs and the wheel well of a Chevy Blazer.
Right.
They paid $8,000 for the ride in the wheel well of a Chevy Blazer.
Right.
This kid has been here since he was 2. He is now 14. He is brilliant. His grades are terrific.
And he speaks English very well because of you.
He speaks English perfectly. No, I never had an opportunity to teach him. However, what are his hopes?
Okay.
When he graduates from high school, the only jobs he's going to be able to get are picking fruit, gardener, or maybe a waiter in a Mexican restaurant. This kid is brilliant in computers. What if he adds Graham County? If he became a doctor, a nurse, a physical therapist, an engineer,
Right.
which he has the skills to do, but as the law is set up right now, he has no hope.
Well, it highlights the other area that we have to work on immigration. And that is the immigration process that we have right now that has created part of this. We need to fix that. The legal path to immigration, we need to fix that. Right now, you can come from Canada, you have to hire all kinds of attorneys. It can take 13 to 15 years to become a citizen. Is that too long? Yes, it's too long. Should we have a process? Here is someone who's wanting to do it, but should those who come here illegally have a preferential treatment over those that are standing in line? Well, let me ask you this. When you're in line at the grocery store, is it appropriate for somebody to come in when you have 5 deep? Is it appropriate for somebody to come in and check out in front of you when you've been waiting there? The answer to that is no, it's not appropriate. And so let's fix the legal immigration, of which I've really pushed some of ours to look at that, at doing that, speed up the process. Then what happens is young men like that will be able to apply for that citizenship and go through that process and be a productive part. But for those great stories, we've got to have a system that works. And we're truly trying in the House to address this. I've got lots of friends who have truly people that work with them that are undocumented, as you would say, that are really part of their family. They've been here a long time. I mean, undocumented workers that have been here 20 and 30 years that are part of it. We've got to fix the system to make sure that it doesn't create a problem down the road. But it's a good
And
point.
the boys' parents both work, both pay taxes, withheld from their pay, but they never can file an income tax return. They can never get an income tax refund
Right,
because they're undocumented.
right.
So when they say these people aren't paying taxes, that's not true.
No, they pay taxes. Sometimes they don't get the benefit. I think I'm out of time, but I'm going to ask one last question because you raised your hand over there and I went the other way.
Okay. Mine is totally different concern.
Totally
I'm
different.
concerned about the taxes for the simple reason that Swain County, I'm from Swain County.
Right.
They just raised our taxes.
Right.
again. I am on fixed income. My husband is in a nursing home.
Right.
So what he draws and what I draw, it takes over half of it to keep them in there. because Medicare and Medicaid only pays so much.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's hard for me to keep my house and everything.
Well, I think that gets back, and even though that's, more of a county and a state thing, when we look at taxes overall, there is a federal component to that. You pay not only federal income tax, but when you fill up your tank of gas, you're paying a federal tax there. Really what it gets back to is again, jobs, and it all boils down to jobs. You've been here in a time where construction was booming, where the timber industry was going a lot better than it is right now. And you've seen it. You know, and when that happens, it's not quite as painful on the taxes because we've got things that are going up, you got money to spend, you got things to do. But what happens is when everything constricts, it makes everything more difficult, whether it's going to college, whether it's, putting food on the table, gasoline in your vehicle or whatever. We have got to find a way to do that. It is not increasing taxes and increasing regulations. I'll finish with this story. In 1981, Ronald Reagan embarked on a time to reduce regulations. And he cut regulations by half. And when he started to do that, we saw the longest period of economic growth. And it was a tough time. Most of you, I can look around, most of you are old enough to remember double-digit inflation and double-digit interest rates. And a few of you are not, okay? But I do remember that. And what happens is when we started to cut those regulations and allow the economy to go, then we got a great period of prosperity. And we're in a downward spiral right now, and we think that the way that we can get out of it is just to tax a little bit more, and eventually we'll be able to help ourselves out. The problem with that, Winston Churchill had the best statement, is that's like a man standing in a bucket trying to lift himself by the handle. It just doesn't work. I mean, because you're taking money out of one pocket to put it in another. And so we've got to find a way. I think it's really reducing regulations, making sure that what we do is we provide real incentives, risk incentives for people to invest, create jobs. When you look at that, if you have broadband, does the infrastructure have to be there? Yes. But the other part of it is there has to be an incentive for somebody to invest. And if there's no upside, they're not going to invest their money. And if we're going to continue to see taxes get higher, because it's going to be squeezed until our economy gets rolling again. I've got to run to Stanley Furniture and a great American success story that's obviously in your backyard. The governor is going to be there, and we're going to be meeting up with him. But I wanted to say last, thank you. Thank you regardless of whether you voted for me or not. Thank you for regardless of whether you'll vote for me in the future or not. What we want to do is make sure that we hear from you. We have got a staff that is committed to helping you with individual problems. I can tell you, if you've got a problem, hopefully we've addressed it and we've worked to do that. You will get return phone calls and you will get follow-up, I promise you. And if you don't, you call me directly and that'll happen. God bless you. Thank you for allowing me to be here.